So we have a bit of a problem. The same problem over and over again. Why did Jesus say this? Behold, I will make those of the synagogue of Satan who say that they are Jews and are not, but lie. Behold, I will make them come and bow down before your feet, and they will learn that I have loved you. Obviously, this book was written by Apostle John while he was on the island of Patmos in exile, and the Holy Fire of God had him write this, obviously for a reason, right? So let's go back to Saul Paul. And again, I don't want to take away from everything with Paul. But see, he never, Jesus, you know how Jesus sometimes changed the apostles' names? Yeah, this was not a divine name change. This was Paul's doing. This was Saul's doing. The other thing is I confuse, because see, I get confused because he's a Jew. Paul, Saul, the same person. A Jew, but born in Tarsus. So born as a Roman citizen. So he had both names because he was Jew and he was Roman. He was Roman born, a Roman citizen, but Jewish. So around the Jews, he would be Saul. Around the Gentiles, he was Paul. So it was never divinely given to him. And again, his vision on his way to Damascus, I kept thinking he was a Roman Empire because he was persecuting Christians. No, he was a Pharisee. Rome gave gave the Pharisees free reign when it came to religion stuff to persecute on their own. He did. Then he had this vision of Jesus coming to him saying, you're persecuting me. And I don't want to take away from all of it, and the only I've brought this up before, that there's some places clearly in his writings that either the Roman Empire toyed with them, which is what I've said, but there's this whole, fake Jew thing going on there. Who do you think Jesus was talking about? Because, earlier, in Revelations, it talks about how some infiltrators came in. Yeah, some infiltrators. Or could we look at modern day, such as this? Robert Maxwell was the name he took on after World War II. That's his Jewish name. Him and Soros and Pritzker are all Ashkenazi Jews. I don't want to go after a certain sect of Jews. I don't want to go after Jews. I don't want to go after anybody. But this seems to be a problem with this name change. And I kind of get it, but I don't. Because it kind of says, you don't stand with God when you got to go changing your name. I've said before I can understand it, to be afraid, especially after what happened to them. But then they become so corrupted. But really, it's like if you can't stand on God, God's word, or you don't want to. Like there's the same war that's always been going on since Jesus. You get in with Rome there. The majority of the people killed during the Holocaust, 85% of them were Ashkenazi Yiddish Jews. I'm not saying it's justified. It's not at all. None of it is, okay? And there's enough evidence for it because of the complicity of IBM and their great record keeping. But this is a problem too. I mean, you can't stop people from changing their names. But see, they do it to hide that they're Jewish. And yet, Soros did it, yeah. All Ashkenazi Jews. Pritzker, and I shouldn't throw Pritzker. I'm throwing him in there because I live in Illinois. But he's from Ukraine. So was Maxwell. because it was once, I think it was part of it was once Czechoslovakia or something. It doesn't matter. They're all Ashkenazi Jews. And I guess depending on the area, like Maxwell grew up in a Yiddish poor area, so they were Yiddish influenced. Here's the really strange thing, makes me think Charlie Kirk was Jewish, which is why he was pushing his false prophet bullshit. Because he pushed the Sabbath so much. But of course the stupid Protestant churches do too, because they don't know Jesus. I'm not saying, I understand that it's a commandment, but see, Jesus came to bring it in here. And Jesus showed that there were times like that, you were to do his work on the Sabbath. Look, the Sabbath was initially created so it was a day you give God. Jesus came and said, I want you to give every day to me. But he was putting the law here. But Charlie Kirk and these Protestant churches and other, they push this Sabbath, change your life by following the Sabbath. Shabbat Shalom, right? Didn't Candace say that on her show because of what Erica Kirk said? Shabbat Shalom. And everybody got pissed off. I think likely Charlie Kirk was Jewish. And he was, so that would be a reason God would purge him. Not because he's Jew, but he's pushing people away from what he wants. It's the same damn war. It's the same war since Jesus. It's the repeating story, literally the repeating story. All the way from Saul to Paul. And see, initially the apostles, because he never met Jesus. See, Barnabas, and he came from a Pharisee family. He was being trained by a Pharisee. And during his daytime, he was persecuting the Christians, the apostles. He killed Stephen. Well, and that's in the Bible. He says he witnessed it, but it was at his hand that it happened. But see, the apostles didn't initially trust him. John never met him. James and Peter, right? James and Peter, they came to trust him because of Barnabas. Okay, Barnabas is mentioned in the Bible. Barnabas, too, didn't know Jesus, but I would say he was legit. However, he was the one that knew Paul and said, and given that he sold his land to give money to the apostles so that they could carry Jesus's message, I could see why the apostles would trust Barnabas, because Barnabas said, no, you can trust Saul Paul. I've seen him preach in Damascus or something. He's legit. Yeah, I wonder if he was. I don't know. It's really, because there's so much of his writings that really, they're truthful. I more think that he was legit. However, this plays into the same thing going on today. So when he's around Jewish people, there was something in the Bible about this too, how you're around the Gentiles, but around the Gentiles you're Paul, around the Jews you're Saul. And he kept the Sabbath, and I'm not trying to say there was anything wrong with that, but he kept all of his regular traditions, but he advocated that, the Gentiles didn't need to be under the law, which he was right. Because Jesus brought the law to your heart. So I don't want to say all of his writings are corrupt. However, they were toyed with by the Roman Empire because they would have had access to it. That's, of course, you'll never convince the churches because they've decided, no, we already know. Right, all your scholars, all of you people that haven't had your heart transformed or mind to know, because if you don't have the heart or the mind transformed, you will not hear the shepherd's voice. So before anybody says that BS to me, please make sure you have that done in you before you bring, oh no, we know this. Because this repeating problem goes on to create this where, oh, we're Jewish, but we don't want people to know we're Jewish. So we change our name maybe many times. And then we're going to be involved in the most wickedest shit ever, trying to take down countries, stealing people's shit. That's what he was doing. While his fellow Jewish people were being slaughtered. That's the wickedness, wickedness, wickedness.